Hi guys, I want to talk to you guys about something that's really important today. This is something that extends way beyond your narcissistic family system. I want to talk to you about permitting yourself to find happiness, giving yourself permission to be happy, and rewiring your mind so that you are able to find that happiness that you were never given permission to find in the first place. You know, if they tell you that you can't set your boundaries and you feel guilty for actually saying no, you feel guilty when you start paying attention to yourself because that diverts away from whatever the narcissist had in mind for you, right? You feel guilty for all these things. If you feel guilty for setting up boundaries for yourself, I'm pretty sure that striving for happiness is almost like a foreign concept, a foreign language. So I want to talk to you about happiness, finding happiness today. Because finding happiness for us scapegoats is actually pretty counterintuitive. So I want to tell you that choosing to focus on your happiness actually does not equate with you being selfish. You are not selfish for taking care of yourself. You are not selfish for prioritizing yourself, your mental health, your emotional safety. You are not selfish for making choices that align with your own values, for making choices that align with your dreams, for making choices that align with who you are as a person. I'm going to find myself a little spot here by a tree to sit down so I can talk to you. I know the camera shakes a lot when I walk around. Okay, it's a nice spot. All right. So I wanted to talk to you about happiness. Now, what I'm going to tell you may actually sound pretty counterintuitive, because this is something that we have not been wired to do. We've been wired from infancy, from childhood, to constantly look to the narcissistic parent and what they want to make them happy. Many of us have been forced to play therapist with the parent, right? I mean, that was my case. I had to be my mother's therapist. It was this constant addiction to victimhood, never, ever, ever doing anything to help herself. Nobody was preventing her from doing anything that she wanted to do in the household, and yet she would always blame the entire family for her own choices and the way that, she was living her life. And I had to play therapist with her as a child, and if I didn't do that, then I was screamed at. I was told, as many of us, right, that no one will ever love me, that my character's the devil, Satan has my soul. When she dies, remember, it's my fault. I'm the one who caused that. People will leave me when they get to know me, and so forth, right? So if I wasn't playing therapist, then I had to be subjected to verbal abuse, psychological abuse, and physical abuse as well. We are hardwired from childhood to constantly look to other people's needs, because looking to our own is frowned upon. We will get punished for doing that. If we don't prioritize, the narcissistic parent and what they want us to do, then we are bad. We are bad for doing that. And that's not a normal way to grow up, to be honest with you, because that's actually what defines a narcissistic family system. The needs of the parents, everything revolves around the needs, unmet needs of the emotionally dysregulated parent. It doesn't evolve around the kids. In a healthy family, the parents will take care of their children's needs. Everything will sort of revolve around the kids, right? Make sure that, it's our responsibility to take care of our children. I'm a mom. I'm telling you about what's normal, okay? It's, it's my responsibility to take care of my kids. It's my responsibility to make sure that they're happy. And I will certainly not be talking about this stuff with them and expect them to soothe me and rescue me. I can do that by myself. Thank you very much, But we've been wired to constantly look to other people and never to ourselves. And so now, looking for happiness can actually be really counterintuitive. It can really feel wrong. Looking for happiness or feeling happy, allowing ourselves to be happy, may really feel absolutely, it will feel wrong. That's the best way that I can explain it to you. It feels like you're not supposed to be happy. You're not supposed to be happy. If you feel happy, you're like, wait a minute, am I supposed to be happy? What about the enablers that are left behind? What about the narcissistic parent? What about this? What about that? You're not supposed to be happy. You feel like you're not supposed to be happy. Let me tell you something. You're allowed to be happy. Okay, give yourself permission to be happy. But having said that, you have to become a really active participant in looking for that happiness. You have to become an active participant in rewiring your brain. You have to rewire how that go to automatic response. You have to rewire it. So the things that you need to do to be able to accept that happiness in your life, they may feel really counterintuitive, actually. So I'm going to tell you a couple of things that I've done that have been super helpful in my healing process and that have brought me to this state, the mental, state that I'm in now. I'm very healthy. I feel peaceful. I have a very good relationship with my husband, with my kids. I'm starting to, reintegrate myself. I have new social circles and such, but it wasn't always like that. In fact, when I went no contact, it was a long time before I was able to start doing this. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about, please don't get mad at me, it's about gratitude. Look, hold on, just hear me out for a second, okay? I know that when you've been through a narcissistic family system, through that kind of hell, when you hear people talk about gratitude, be grateful, it might actually piss you off. I know it pissed me off. When I didn't understand what they were talking about initially, so I'm going to explain that to you now with my new understanding of this. But talking about gratitude, when you've been discarded, sick, alone, with post-traumatic stress disorder, you've been abandoned by your family, with panic disorder, anxiety disorder, you've been left alone with no support to deal with the sickness that the narcissistic parent put in you. And then you hear people tell you to be grateful. Excuse me? Yeah, it can feel really wrong. But I'm going to explain to you what that's all about. First of all, gratitude practice and toxic positivity is not the same thing. So let's just not confuse those two things. Toxic positivity is, ignore the bad, you're supposed to be happy. Why don't we just ignore all the bad things and focus on the positive? That's not possible. You can't not feel what you feel. You know what I mean? If you need to grieve, you need to grieve. And if you have the right to be angry at the things that happen to you, you know what I mean? Those are all normal things, okay? That's not what I'm saying. Gratitude practice, it doesn't discount your negative experiences, okay? You have to take the time to grieve your losses. But you also have the right to pursue happiness in this life and create a peaceful environment and peaceful future for yourself. And in order to do this, you actually have to train your mind and your body to look for it. This is something that, especially when you come out of these systems, is very, very, very difficult to find a light when you're surrounded by such darkness. But the thing is that there is so much more beyond that the narcissist and the world that they created and that they sucked you in. There's so much more beyond that vortex. it's almost like what I'm asking you to do is, like, if you look behind me, for example, you see this is a Canadian forest, right? Typical Canadian forest. So it's as if we go from this environment, we take a plane and we land, like, let's say in the desert, like in Egypt, for example. We land in Egypt. That switch of environment is what I'm talking about. When you're come out of a narcissistic family system, you're in an environment, you're in a certain environment, and you ruminate about that environment, and all you see is what that environment taught you. So what I'm asking you to do is to actually completely, train yourself to come out of that mentality, to take a step away from, let's say the swampland, and completely step in a completely, like, in a land of sunshine. By the way, I'm not calling Canada a swampland. I love living here. It's just an example. But you have to completely shift. It's like you have to shift the fog that you're in, and take, like, step out of that fog and train yourself to start looking for new things that are beyond what you've been taught. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. So when you practice gratitude, basically what you do is that you have to actually start looking and becoming mindful of the little things that make you happy. Like, what makes you happy, And an exercise that you can do is basically, let's say, like, you pick one day a week. Do this only once a week. 'Cause if you do it too much, it's too much. And, like, don't try so hard. Don't try too hard. Just kind of do it. Start small. Once a week, let's say Monday, write down 3 things that you're grateful for. And that could be, for example, for me, peace, being able to enjoy nature, having the freedom to enjoy the things that nature has to offer, for example. It could be an animal. I'm grateful that I have this pet in my life. I am grateful that I have a bed to sleep in tonight. I'm grateful that I have, anything that made you feel a little bit relieved, or that brought you a little bit of peace in the present moment. Look for it. Look for those things. Maybe you took yourself out to the movies by yourself for the first time. Whatever it is that kind of, maybe you challenged yourself, you did a little something for yourself, and you were successful at it, right? And that brought you a good feeling. Whatever it is, write it down. 3 things that you're grateful for, this, like, in the present moment. 3 things, as hard as it is to find them when you bring yourself, when you're in a dark place, as hard as it is, force yourself counterintuitively to find those things, because you have to get out of that fog that your family has kept you in. You have to force yourself to get out of that fog. And so the first thing is by looking for those peaceful moments, those things that bring you peace, that make you happy. Look for those things, write them down, and force yourself to zoom in on those things, okay? So practice, start with gratitude practice, but like I said, do it, don't go too crazy with that. Don't do too much. Don't start writing 100 things every day. That's too much. Really, 3 things on Monday, and that's enough, okay? Once a week, write it down. This week, these are the 3 things that made me happy, okay? Simple exercise. Second thing that I want to tell you is simplify your life. Okay, happiness is actually not complicated, to be honest with you. And it actually, for me, personally, it boils down to one question. Is this healthy for me or not? Yes or no? That's it. It doesn't have to be complicated. When you're dealing with toxic people, everything becomes complicated, eh? Even saying no, or telling someone, you know what, I'm not comfortable with this situation, they will turn that into a whole mountain. Well, we did all these things for you. So, you're not grateful that we did all these things for you. So now you should have, you abandoned your family. You're supposed to, continue taking psychological abuse like the rest of us with a smile. Just ignore it. Why can't you just do what all of us are doing, right? It's so complicated. Like, they don't let you. Like, it's not possible. So simplify your life. Simplify your life. Keep things simple. Is this good for me? Is this not good for me? And that's it. And it really helps also to cut out the excess, any excess that you surround yourself with. Like, if you look around, your living space or your environment that you're in, get rid of anything that's too much. Get rid of clutter. Get rid of excess, because true happiness really doesn't come around stuff. Your happiness comes from you fulfilling your needs. And I'd invite you to watch the video that I made about this if you haven't seen it yet, about wants versus needs. Your happiness, it comes when you start to fulfill your needs. If you need to get healthy, then get healthy. If you need to work on your social life, then baby steps, start working on that. If you need to get rid of your narcissistic parent in your life and prioritize yourself, do that. If you need of course, we all need emotional safety, physical safety. Those are the things. If you have a need for peace, ask yourself, what do I really need to have peace in my environment? What do I need? And that's what you go for. Simplify your life. Get rid of clutter. And I always go by the 20-80 rule, actually. I find that's a really excellent rule. You'll probably find that you only use 20% of the stuff that you surround yourself with, and 80% of the stuff is just clutter and junk that you don't really use, So simplify your life. Really zoom in on the simple stuff that make you happy, and don't worry about the rest. Zoom in on what is good for you and get rid of what's not good for you. After that, I want to tell you something, when it comes to creating connections with people. I know for myself, the most difficult thing was actually to relearn how to socialize with people. Random acts of kindness go a long way. If you engage in small acts of kindness on a regular basis, this will help you sort of connect with others. And it will also help boost your self-esteem. And it will sort of help you, people will smile back at you. You're going to start having pleasant conversations with people. And that will kind of help rewire you a little bit. It will kind of help you see that, not everybody's evil. It's not everybody is like that environment from where you came from. Now, when it comes to small acts of kindness, I'm not talking about rescuing. Like I said, that's a separate video I'm going to have to make. Don't go out of your way. Don't do a grand gesture. Don't do anything don't go beyond what you can do for another person. What I mean is small, simple acts of kindness that you can do without going beyond your comfort level. Like, for instance, you can hold the door for someone, you can help an old person cross the street, you can, when you're driving, just let them in. Okay, let them in that lane. All right, go. What else? A kind word, just little things that you can do, help somebody, if you see a mom struggling with a bunch of bags as she's dealing with the kids, maybe you can help offer to carry the bags to the car as she's dealing with the kids. Little things that you can do. Very small, without expectations. Don't expect anything in return. Just do a little random act of kindness. And that will make a huge difference for the other person. And it will also help you sort of feel better about your environment, because you will start slowly to see, people will smile back at you, and you're going to start noticing, hey, they smiled at me, You're going to start noticing, that you can actually have little connections with people here and there when you start doing this. The other thing I want to tell you is, another thing that you can do is strike up a friendly conversation with a random person. Don't make it, don't be creepy, But, for example, if you're at the grocery store and someone's looking at sauces or something, and you go, excuse me, have you tried the, I was curious about this sauce you're holding in your head. Is it any good? How would you cook it? I know it sounds silly, but it's very... like these tiny little conversations. You can ask for information, ask someone for information, for example. I'll give you an example of how I did this. Actually, I was at the gym, and I was on the treadmill, and there was a lady running beside me on another treadmill, and at some point she stopped and she looked like she was in pain. I think it was her back that was hurting her. And so I slowed my treadmill down. I looked to her and I said, "Do you need help? Are you okay?" Like, instead of minding my business, are you okay? And actually, we ended up striking a really nice conversation for the rest of the gym time. We were both, we both talked about, the conversation actually led to like a whole bunch of stuff, but it started with, "Are you okay? Is it your back? Are you hurt? Can I help you?" And it just, the conversation just evolved, and I did that because I was following this trick, this advice of, starting a little random conversation with a random person, but without any expectations and without looking creepy. It's just, like just random little things that you can do. The other thing, one of the most important things, is be aware of your mind and body connection. This is huge. It's huge to become aware of that. Your body and your mind, it's a two-way communication system. And your mind will influence your body, and your body will influence your mind. This was something that I also had to do. When I came out, for a very long time, actually, I was really out of shape. I would drink too much alcohol. I was not in a good place, but I started small. I started by walking every day, and then the walk became a jog. And now I do a good 10 kilometers, I have to tell you, and I'll my kids will bike beside me, and we have a great time. It's a great time for me to bond with my kids, actually, the exercise time as a family, But your body-mind connection it's also beyond exercise. It's also being mindful of your body posture. Like when you go out on the street, oftentimes when we carry shame, when we feel ashamed, or we will have, like, our shoulders would be, like, or we will look to the ground and our shoulders will be hunched, right? Because we kind of oftentimes will feel like the world hates us, because that's what the narcissistic family system, that's how they make us feel. They make us feel like we're unlovable. And of course, the narcissistic parents' messages, right? Those messages, they keep telling you that you're horrible and your character and you're the devil, right? So physically, we will manifest that. We will hunch our shoulders. We will feel the shame of who we are. And for that, I actually invite you to watch my video that I made about shame, because this is something that I didn't even know I had until I studied it. And I realized, wow, I didn't know that I was ashamed of myself. I thought that I was just feeling guilt. But shame is really when you feel like there's something wrong with you as a person. That's what shame is, Like there's you are something wrong, you're like you should not show your face because the world will, doesn't like you. It's sort of like the narcissistic family system will have us. We will internalize this, So it's so important for you, like when you go outside, to walk with your back, like straighten your back, chin up. Become mindful as you walk. Look around you. Like, pay attention physically to how you present yourself. Another trick I know is you can put like a pen in your mouth, when you bite your pen, and it will sort of force a smile. And apparently that has a positive effect on the brain. Like, because if you that's the reason why they tell you, like, breathing is so important, because when you breathe slowly, like if you breathe fast because you're panicking, then you're sending your body, your brain, a message that it's time to panic, and so it will create sort of like a panic loop. So that's why they say you have to breathe slowly to communicate with your brain that you're not in danger, you're actually safe, you're okay, you don't have to run, So your body and mind connection is really important. So start paying attention to that. Start paying attention to your posture. Start paying attention to what you eat. Start paying attention to how you care for yourself. Start paying attention to, your physical health, go for a walk, do a sport. If you're not doing it already, then really start doing things to connect with your body. When I did this, I have to tell you that maybe for a good 2 years, I didn't feel well mentally, but physically I saw an improvement. I was getting in shape, and I was still ruminating and stuff like that, but I was starting to get in shape, and I was starting to see, that my body was really getting healthier. And eventually something happened, like there was a connection, like the anxiety started to decrease. This took a long time though. This is not something that will happen overnight. This is like something that you have to do consistently. So that's it, guys. I know this is a long video today, but it's such an important topic. Taking charge of your well-being, looking for happiness. You have to be an active participant. You have to start doing counterintuitive things to get out of that fog that they put you in. You actually have to push against that fog and start doing counterintuitive things that you can bring yourself towards that point where you can actually start to feel happy. It's not going to happen if you remain in the same place that you always have, and if you don't do anything, like if you remain in the rumination and you constantly think about those people and what they did to you, if you don't give yourself permission to pursue your goals, if the guilt is constantly overriding everything that you do, you have to become an active participant in getting yourself rid of that. And that's an internal shift. You have to do it within yourself. I can't do that for you. But the steps that I spoke about just now, they're very helpful in sort of rewiring your mind and stepping out of that zone. And it's like stepping into a new country. Or like a client of mine said once, it was like opening a new file in your brain. It's kind of like that, you have to close the file that you're constantly looking at and open a new file in your brain and focus on that new file. It's sort of like that. You can't wait for things to just magically fall into place, because they won't. It really requires a lot of internal work on your own. And it starts by going against that backwards push. You have to go against that backwards push and really force yourself to look for that happiness. And eventually it's going to become your new normal, and you're going to start to feel better. So that's it, guys. I hope that this was helpful. Thank you so much for all the comments and for participating, and I feel so grateful that you guys are giving me a platform to talk about these things. And remember, always say, I love myself, I trust myself, I love myself, I trust myself. Make that your mantra as you start taking those steps and fighting that backwards pull that's keeping you in the fog. Start taking those steps towards the happiness that you deserve to have in your life.